Welcome back to the Eagle versus Kiwi podcast, a show about living in America from the perspective of a New Zealander. If you're new here, please make sure to hit that subscribe button, rate and review the show. It'll help the show go a long way. Last week we talked about me making America my home and if I was ready or not. This podcast specifically, we're going to be talking about the most asked questions that I get here in America, and they vary from time to time. In Pittsburgh, so I've lived in 3 different places now. I've lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Portland, Oregon, and now Austin, Texas. The most I've ever been asked, and so usually when I get asked where I'm from, it's at work. So the first time that I would always get asked was at work. The most amount of times I've asked where I'm from within a 6-hour shift is 13 times, and that was over a holiday period in Portland, Oregon. I keep a track on my hand as a fun little game to kind of pass time. But it's I don't mind. So when people ask me, the first thing that comes to their mind, or the first 2 questions that I always get asked is, where are you from, and are you from Australia? The close third is always, where in Australia are you from? And these dum-dums always seem to assume that I'm from Australia. And then, okay, it doesn't bother me. Okay, it doesn't bother me when people ask me if I'm from Australia or where I'm from or so-and-so. When I tell them I'm from New Zealand, they always say, oh, that was going to be my second guess. I'm like, sure it was. But it honestly does not bother me. It doesn't bother me when people ask me if I'm from Australia or where I'm from or whatnot. What really, really bothers me, though, is when people try to tell me that I'm from Australia. And what I mean by that is, so I say I'm not from Australia. They go, oh, you sound exactly like an Australian. Are you sure you're not from Australia? I'm like, nope, I know exactly where I'm from. I'm from Wanganui, New Zealand. I was born in Wanganui Hospital. I know exactly where I'm from. But I hate it when Americans try to do that to me. I'm still waiting for the time to be like, but Canadians and Americans, they sound the same. And Americans will say, no, we don't, which I always return with, there you go, Australia and New Zealand. The thing is, when people say, oh, you sound like an Australian, I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm from New Zealand. I know where I'm from. We have an entire Pacific Ocean that separates us, you fucking dummies. But people like to assume where I'm from. The most strangest place where I've been asked where I'm from, asked where I'm from, is Boston. Someone said, are you from Boston? I'm like, no, I'm definitely not from Boston. If I lived in Boston, I wouldn't be this brown. I know it's very cold and gloomy in Boston. They always get a lot of snow. But, yeah, the most asked question is, am I from Australia? And then I always kind of have to follow it up with, oh, you sound exactly like my friend. Oh, I've got a good buddy of mine that lives in Australia. That's always a story they kind of come back with, which I don't mind listening to, but most of the time I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Like, oh yeah, I got a buddy in Australia. Don't care. Just gonna stop listening right now. No, I don't give a shit. You got a friend from Australia? Don't care. I don't give a fuck. But the people who I do give a fuck about is when people have been to New Zealand. And this is true when I say it to people, go, oh, I just went to New Zealand not long ago, or I've been to New Zealand a couple of years ago, whatnot. I always love hearing about their stories in New Zealand because we've got that immediate connection between, me and this stranger who I've just met in that moment. And they'll tell me where they went and how they loved it and so on and so on. And it honestly, truly keeps me, it keeps me away from being homesick too much. Because I love where I'm from, and it's one of those things where you don't know how much you love something until, it's you're not doing it every day, or you're not there, or in my case, you're not home. I miss a lot of lifestyle patterns that New Zealand has compared to America. In saying that, though, America is full of opportunities. You can create anything you want here in America, and you just find that niche crowd, and they'll eat it up. And that's what I love the most about America. So this podcast has flourished because of America. I don't think I would have started it if I was stayed in New Zealand. I truly don't. I don't think I would have started it. I mean, apart from this podcast, I've got my main podcast, which is the Honor and Conquer podcast. And before I even started the podcast, originally it was meant to be an apparel company. And I was on the back burner with it. And then I was doing some goal setting with my boss at the time, Mr. John Hutter. No, that's not his name. What's his name? Oh, shit. It's not John. It's definitely not John. I fucking have to look this up real quick. Anyway. Oh, fuck nuts. I can't talk and, like, type at the same time. Hutter. People. It is John. Jeff. Is it Jeff or John? I'm going to go with Jeff. It's got to be Jeff. Jeff Hutter. Anyway, he was like, what's holding you back? And I said, from starting the company. You know, I was putting all these goals in and all that kind of shit. And I was like, oh, what's holding you back? And I said, nothing really. And he said, why don't you launch it then? So that night after my goal setting session, I launched the podcast and launched a company, and I never looked back. And I don't think I would have done the same if I was in New Zealand, you know? But anyway, I digress. So gone far, far away from the topic. And then another question that I get asked the most here in America is, why did you move here? Then I have to go through the whole spiel of, my wife is from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Once she was done with her master's, we moved to America. And then the next questions after that is, how did you end up in Portland? Or now in this case, how did you end up in Austin? Then I have to go through way back in the years and go, well, my wife got a job offer in Portland, and then we moved to Portland. Then my wife got a job offer in Austin, and then we moved to Austin. It's I like to joke that I'm just tagging along for the ride. Which, I mean, in most cases, I love traveling. I love being away, you know, just traveling or just spending hours in the car, just, you know, road tripping, doing stuff. And I've traveled, I feel like I've seen a lot of America than most Americans have. I've worked in a lot of places that most Americans haven't. You know, I've road tripped from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to Portland, Oregon. You know, we've crossed state lines, we've crossed time zones, we've seen the seasons change on our road trips. You know, we've seen a whole bunch of shit, and I feel very fortunate and very lucky that I've got to do that. And on this trip from Portland, Oregon to Austin, I've done the exact same thing. So, you know, I get to see. By the way, fuck Albuquerque. We're never going back to New Mexico. Fuck that place. I can't be bothered talking about why, but don't live there. Get out immediately. But yeah, that's the number one question I always get asked. And most people, when they get where I'm from wrong, people go, "Oh, I heard you don't like being called an Australian," but me, I don't give a fuck. It's when people force it intensely on me that I either sound like an Australian or that I sound like their friend, or when they try to convince me that you guys are the same place, right? Yeah, that's what annoys me, is that you guys are in the same place. I'm like, no, we're fucking not. There's a whole ocean that separates us. You and Canadians, if anything, sound the exact same, and that's a fair comparison because there's only a borderline separating you fuckers. You know what I mean? So we may sound the same, but we're just not. We're not the same. If anything, most New Zealanders travel over to Australia and vice versa. So that's probably where the mix-up gets caught up. But I can tell that if I said something like, well, Americans and Canadians sound the same, he or she or they would get pissed off. And I love it. I love that. I love that a lot. But I don't mind it. Just don't be so cunty about it. Don't be so fucking asshole-ish about it and try and push your, oh, I got my friend, you sound like my mate. You sound like my fucking friend, I need to hit him up. Slangs. One of these episodes will be about slangs, and we'll lay it down. Because that in itself is definitely something different. Trying to explain New Zealand slangs to Americans it's tough. Because of my accent, people won't know what I'm talking about either. So in most cases, I'm like, just don't bother. They make fun of me when they even say rubbish bin. Like, I'm just going to chuck this in the rubbish real quick. Oh, rubbish! That's something that gets on my fucking nerves too. When people do my accent and they well, okay, I don't mind them trying to do my accent. I've only met one person who has done my New Zealand accent to a fucking T. No joke. This chick could go over to New Zealand and just pull it off. If she walked around with that New Zealand accent, people would be like, oh shit, you're from New Zealand. Like, it's on point. But when people try to do my accent, they go super English, super posh English. If I say rubbish bin, people will be like, oh, put that in the rubbish bin, yeah? And I'm like, yeah, stop sounding like a fucking moron. You sound like an idiot. Don't do it. Just don't. I don't mind it, but you sound stupid, and you should stop immediately. There have been people who, as soon as they see me, they go, oh, what's up, Dion? They try to sound like me. What's up, Dion? They'll put on the worst accent. I don't go around sounding like an American and try to do your fucking bullshit accent. I don't do that. Because I know it's stupid, and I know I sound like an idiot. And I can tell they're like, oh, it's so funny because we got this guy on a team. Like, don't do it. Because you sound like a moron. But that's how it goes. That's just the way it is. That's what Tupac said. That's just the way it is. And things will never be the same. But things won't probably stay the same. But it is what it is. I don't, again, I've said this 1,000 times. I don't mind being asked where I'm from. It's when people become real pricks after it. But when people become like, I love when people ask me questions though. I love when people ask me like general questions about New Zealand, like what's the weather like? I genuinely don't mind. What's the weather like in New Zealand? Does it get like this hot? Never. It never gets Austin hot. I tell you that much. It never gets like here in Austin. So if you're a New Zealander and you're listening to this podcast, bro, seriously. The heat here in Austin is suffocating. Right now, it's not. It's like in its 80s. I don't know what that is in Celsius. Let's have a look at it real quick. Fahrenheit to Celsius. So for the New Zealanders, okay, Fahrenheit. It's right now. It's in its 80s. Oh, so it's a normal day. So in Celsius, it's 26 to 25. And that's considered a hot day in New Zealand. No joke. It's considered a really fucking fuck-off hot day in New Zealand. So right now, for you New Zealanders, it's about 26 degrees in Austin, Texas right now. The hottest it's ever been was in San Antonio that I've experienced, which was 114. And that was 45 degrees in Celsius in San Antonio. Bro, straight up, it was so fucking hot. It was so hot. I'm glad I wore a white t-shirt that day because I was just dripping with sweat. I wish I didn't do my hair looking back at it now because I keep getting stung in the eyes from the hair product. But it was bad. And even when we went back to the car to go home, there was no shelter. We didn't park in shelter. So when we got back, the car was so fucking stuffy. It was hot. I turned the car on. It looked like the screen, because we've got an LED screen in our car. and it looked like it was melted. Like, oh, fuck, we need to get the fuck out of here. We need to go right now. But, yeah, that's as hot as it gets here, I feel. But I don't mind it. I'm getting strangely used to it now, the heat here in Austin, Texas. It is what it is. But anyway, we're going to cut it there. I just want to do I don't want to go any longer than an hour for these shows at all. I like doing 15 to 20 minutes because it's nice and short. It's to the point. So, yeah, this episode's been about the most questions I've gotten asked. If we were to do it from number one, okay, breakdown of the questions. Number one, where are you from? Number two, are you from Australia? Number three, where in Australia are you from? Number four, where is that accent from? And number five would probably be... what would number five be? I don't know. I don't know what number five would be, but there are some smart people who get it straight away, who are like, "You a Kiwi?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am." Oh, that's another thing I wanted to touch on. Some dumb Americans think that Kiwi is a derogatory slang, like the N-word here in America. Crazy, right? People don't even know what a Kiwi is. People genuinely don't know what a fucking Kiwi is. Everyone in the world knows what an eagle is, obviously. But these dummies don't even know what a Kiwi is. And people are going to be like, oh, how are they meant to know? It's a fucking animal. It's a bird. It's like, if anything, it's a mainstream bird. It's a flightless bird. But it's a Kiwi. People think it's like a slang word for like a person from New Zealand. I'm like, no, we love being called Kiwis. That's our national icon bird. And then I make a joke about, they're an endangered species in New Zealand. They're getting killed by rats and stoats. We have conservatories that build, pods or like things to help them breed to make more Kiwis. But in Australia, they eat their icon, which is the kangaroo. They eat it. They eat their icons. One would argue that a koala would be theirs, but you got to watch out for those drop bears too, because they'll fucking get you. But anyway, that's been the podcast. Again, thank you very much for listening to the show, Eagle versus Kiwi podcast. This is just my perspective from living so far here in America. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the show. Tell your friends about it. Share it on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that shit. I don't have any social media channels set up for this yet, so because it's kind of a hush-hush project. This is just for me. I love talking about this stuff. And again, this is just kind of like a breakdown of what I've experienced here in America. Okay? So subscribe to the show. Rate the show a 5-star show, and give me your feedback in the review section as well. Okay, thank you very much, you guys, for listening. I appreciate it. Okay, bye.